Today we're going to react to a video by Ramit Sethi. It's his most popular video on YouTube where he talks about why he doesn't own a house as a multimillionaire, and I'm going to counterbalance some of his points and show some math to validate my thoughts.
I'm a multimillionaire and I don't own my house and I don't invest in any property. But why? Isn't a house a great investment? Isn't buying property a great place to put your money?
Okay, just so we're right off the bat there, he doesn't own, so this is speculative, apparently.
And surely it's better than throwing your money away on rent, right? Well, when you run the numbers, that's actually often wrong. And I've been saying this for years on my podcast, in my book, even on my Netflix show. You've been lied to about buying property.
Okay, real quick, so we're clear here. Book, Netflix show, other things that he gets paid really well for. So this guy makes money, so he's doing well. So, you know, different levels to different games, right? So this is the, I'm not at your level, but I'm going to talk to you about your level. That said, I would at least like to throw out there that I have both owned and purchased, and I have rented as well, both while I was in the barracks, obviously, and then an apartment and another apartment. And I actually rented a home while I was a real estate investor because at the time, renting that place made more sense to me than buying in that economic environment. So there is an argument to both sides of the coin. I've been in both spots. I do not believe in absolutes, so we're going to talk through both sides.
The dream you've been sold. What is the American dream? If you're like most people, you picture a single family home and 2.5 kids and a dog. Where did that dream come from? That dream is the result of decades of marketing. Some people might even call it propaganda, including from one of the most corrupt organizations in the world, the National Association of Realtors. They just had $1 billion+ judgment filed against them.
Yeah, but while I'm not a fan of NAR, and I'm not here to defend the fact that I think the Realtor Association and commissions and a lot of stuff could and should probably change, what big company hasn't been sued about something?
Most people in the world do not live in single family homes like we do in America, and yet we believe this is the only measure of success.
Interesting.
Next up, think about the numbers themselves. Decades ago, your parents' generation, certainly their parents, a house would cost roughly 2.5x your annual income. People would put down 20%, and the total monthly payments would be about or less than 30% of your gross income, which includes mortgage, maintenance, insurance, taxes, all of it. Let me give you an example with some real numbers. If you make $50,000 a year, gross income before taxes, that means that your house would cost $125,000.
All right, interesting. Let's see. Let's see if we can't find the perfect example. All right, so there's a 3.2 for 110. For 135, we've got a 2.2. For 130, we've got a 3.2. That's, you know, probably just a lot. 135, that's probably a lot. Depends on the neighborhood. Like the southeast side of Springfield is really kind of the higher end. But I mean, look, 120. A 1,500 square foot 2.1, 115, 1,000 square foot 3.1. We'll stay within that budget. 120, 1,100 square foot 3.1, 115. That's a lot, but that's also in a really nice neighborhood. 99, 2.1, 700 square feet, 103,000, 913 square feet. All right, so right off the bat, I'm just going to throw out there location, right? It does exist. And by the way, our median income is right around that 50K mark. So that maths here where I live.
And in that same example of 50K a year income, you put $25,000 down and your total monthly payments would be $1,250 per month.
Okay, let's see. Just a fact check here. We'll just go with the very first mortgage calculator that popped right up. $125,000 home, $25,000 down payment, loan is $100,000. We're just going to leave it at the exact interest rate that popped up. 30-year amortized start rate. Property tax that's actually high for this area. For where I live, property tax is right at 1%-ish, so $1,250. Yeah, we'll assume you have PMI, even though if you're a VA buyer, you don't have that. Home insurance seems a little high for where I live, but you know what? We'll leave it. Yeah, no HOA. Let's see. So, total monthly payment, $968.13. That's with the $25,000 down, 20%. That it says PMI is not required, of course, because you put the 25% down. But like, even if you did the VA, you'd be under that $1,250 that he's talking about. Yeah, and that's including your taxes and your home insurance. So that's because when you do a primary residence, everything's escrowed. So in my current city, you could go buy a $125,000 house for $968.13, assuming that this was your home insurance, which I do believe is a little bit high. If you put $25,000 down and you had that current 7% interest rate, you didn't buy your rate down or anything. So all of this checks out, except right off the bat, he's saying $1,250. Now, I will say $1,250 is probably closer to what that place would rent for, perhaps, but mortgage is cheaper.
Have you ever seen a house like that in your entire lifetime? No, things are different now, and yet we are still operating on these old rules.
You guys just saw like 5 of them, and I spent 3 minutes unplanned, pulled up the URL, Googled it.
And this still doesn't explain the craziness of people who buy houses for 5 times, 10 times their salary with 3% down. And I'm telling you this because if you buy something you cannot afford, it might seem like you are buying your way into the American dream, but oftentimes it will come around and bite you in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, I should preface, obviously, that I am not a fan of buying outside your means. No financial person is going to tell you that you should buy outside your means. So, no.
The myths about owning a home. There are 4 main myths about home ownership. Myth number 1, prices in real estate always go up. No, they don't. You would think people understand this after the 2008 recession, but there are powerful forces at play to get you to forget about this, such as the National Association of Realtors, your family, even the government, all encouraging you to buy a house. Remember, many things appear to always get more expensive. That is the result of inflation.
I just want to throw this out there. Historically, homes do go up. Obviously, there are blips. But the irony is that Ramit is a index fund guy. And I should probably say this. I like Ramit. I like his book. Like, a lot of what he talks about is great. I am by no means, like, his whole reduce your interest rate on your credit card thing, the script works. Like, not on Ramit per se. But this whole genre of people who talk about this, I can't handle this side of the story, right? And so it is worth noting that Ramit talks a lot about securities, index funds, and stocks and investing in that regard, right? Those also got trashed in 2008. So using his own like, this is a logical fallacy. Like, don't invest in this because it doesn't always do this, but invest in this even though it did the exact same thing at the exact same time. Like, every market has cycles, it's cyclical, but long-term, all U.S. markets trend upward.
Real estate, which is opaque, landlords will often discount the number of months you can pay. They'll do rate buy downs. They will do all kinds of things to avoid reducing the price while secretly reducing the price to keep up the myth that buying a house always goes up.
I don't believe this whole landlords are evil, they're out to get you, they're buying down the rate just to keep up the myth that real estate goes up. What? No, first off, I've never done move-in discounts or freaking rate buy-downs on any of my real estate. So
the value of a house doubles every 10 years.
Anyone who believes that is a hard and fast rule is an idiot. These are rules of thumb. And rule of thumb, rule of 72, if you have an average 7% return, which is the S&P 500, it doubles every decade. That's like the easy, simple math. Index funds are valued the same way. They assume it doubles every decade because of 7% return over the last 60, 70 years. Houses, generally about 6%, but it depends on your area. So sure, we'll call it every 10 years, probably closer to 12 years, but whatever. Like, it is a rule of thumb. It's not a myth.
And even when the price does double, most people forget to factor in phantom costs. Phantom costs are all the costs of a house that most people forget about. They're phantoms. They include things like closing costs, taxes, property insurance, maintenance, repairs, even the gas to drive to Home Depot.
I don't know if Ramit is intentionally trying to make you guys feel dumb, but just know that I'll just go back to it. This exact mortgage calculator right here. What did we factor in? We factored in when you do a primary residence, when you are buying a house to live in, they escrow your monthly payments. Escrow means all the money for your principal, which is the money paying down your debt, interest, the money on that, the interest on that loan, taxes, the property taxes, and insurance. Principal, interest, taxes, insurance, all go into one account, and that gets escrowed into your payment. As you can see right over here on my mortgage repayment summary, total mortgage amount, $1,000, but it would be $304.17 less. So my mortgage would only be $664 or $663 and whatever that math is a month if we didn't include taxes and insurance. But that is escrow. That is counted in this payment. So when he says phantom costs, taxes, insurance, they're not phantom costs. They're in your freaking mortgage payment. And then, yeah, maintenance, repairs, closing. Okay, gas to Home Depot. That's a stretch. Like, you don't go to Home Depot ever as a renter. You've never been to Home Depot. You don't necessarily have to go to Home Depot. You could just pay a contractor. Like, whatever. Anyway, closing costs are paid when you buy a house. If your agent is unable to negotiate closing costs for you when you're selling the house so that the buyer pays, get a new agent. Like, I've never paid closing costs when I sell a house. Conversely, I've almost never paid closing costs or all of them when I buy a house because I'm a pretty good negotiator and I'm buying a lot of stuff off market. So I usually split the difference with the seller. But like, Repairs and maintenance. Yeah, okay, that is the one perk of renting. But look, let's assume for math here that this is your monthly payment. And my $12.50, which is what he said at the beginning, is what you'd be paying in rent. Now, it might even be a little higher. It might be a little lower, but we'll just assume. So $12.50. So that gives us just under $300. We'll call it $275 a month. So $275, well, easy math, right? We'll just easy math, $275 times 12, $3,300 a year that you can save off just what you would have been paying in rent to go towards maintenance and repairs. That $3,300 a year will do an HVAC. It'll do your furnace. It'll do, a full fridge, oven, microwave set. If you wait till Black Friday, whatever. The other thing is when you can buy homeowners insurance, so all of that stuff is covered. And so you really don't have to worry about those the first 2 to 3 years if you have a good homeowners insurance policy. And the other big factor right here that he's not going to mention, I almost guarantee, is that in 10 years, watch this, on the mortgage calculator, let's go down. Is there an amortization schedule here? Hang on. Okay. So we bought 2025, let's assume 2035. In 2035, your balance will be $83,726. So you would have paid off $16,300 on this loan as well. So if the house goes from $125,000 to $250,000, I'm going to pull my little fancy calculator over here real quick. So boop. So 8376. So 250 minus 83.7, I don't remember what it was, so we'll call it 760. That's $166,240 in equity in that home. Now let's take out your original down payment, $141,240 in equity in a decade, right? In 10 years. So now I'm no genius here. So I'm going to take this out of the screen real quick. We'll go to ChatGPT. Okay. Internal rate of return, IRR, is the average annualized return. So we're assuming you put $25,000 down on this house. It turned into that $141,240 in equity. Granted, you may have to pay a commission out of that, but that equals a quote 18.91% IRR. In order to beat that in the stock market, you would have to be, day trading. I mean, that is insane. Now, here's the other thing. The argument is, well, if you put $125,000 in and you put it in the stock market and it earns, this return, you don't have to do all these things, then you're better off. But that's saying you could have bought 5 houses for that. Anyway, so the math is mathing here. So this is a $25,000 down payment, a $25,000 investment. House doubled, we're assuming, turns into 140. Even if you got half of this, that's a 9% return, 9.5% return. That is better than the S&P 500's historical average. And you did what? You lived somewhere? That's why I prefer homeownership over renting. But all right, let's keep going.
Your time and, of course...
Oh, the time. The time to live there? This is assuming you do all this work yourself and there's a ton of maintenance and repairs. If you live in the house, there's probably not that much maintenance and repairs compared to being a landlord, because you're probably taking care of your own house.
The opportunity cost of that down payment and what you could have made if you simply invested it in an S&P 500 index fund.
Oh, let's find out. Let's do that same exact thing. I don't actually know what okay, so it says approximately 10% before inflation, 7% after adjusting for inflation. All right, so let's just assume you put that $25,000 into down payment. We're going to do, 10% for this, not adjusting for inflation, which on the real estate, you do adjust for inflation. Inflation helps you in real estate. Okay, so your $25,000 would grow to $64,843. So what was that math over here? So we're going to take out this minus, oh, what do you know? You are $64,778 or $787 better off by owning a house in this exact example. That is not this right here does not assume or does not factor the fact that you are saving $3,300 a year in rent. So over the course of that time, that's 33,000. Oh, I'm sorry. That should be minus because I'm in the negatives now. So I'm 33. So that's $97,787 back. So unless you realistically believe that where's that slide? The gas to Home Depot, your time for living in the house, repairs and maintenance, and the commission to your sales guy come out to more than $97,000 in a decade, you're in the green on a house.
It's actually quite common that you could sell your house for a higher price than you paid for it and still lose money when you factor in all the phantom costs.
Yeah, maybe if he doesn't understand that if you live in the house, you don't pay capital gains tax, and he's going to include that in his thing too. By the way, if you live in the house for 2 out of the last 5 years before you sell, capital gains exemption, or 2 out of the last 15 years if you're active duty military, you don't pay capital gains tax on the first $250,000 or $500,000 if you're married, which saves you $250,000 to $500,000 in possible taxes, which eliminates that argument too.
It is not simply the bigger number minus the smaller number pops out profit. That's not how it works. You got to factor in all those phantom costs to get your true.
Okay, again, with this whole fearmonger thing, included, taxes included, time argument, insurance included in your payment, opportunity cost, I just showed you the math on that. Maintenance and repairs, probably not as bad because you live in the damn house. Closing costs, only when you buy, and you can negotiate that as a buyer, but not when you sell. So you would be paying that on the front end, not the doubled property price. Gas to Home Depot. I don't know, buy a Tesla.
You can use leverage to increase your money. This is partially true, and homeowners often point to leverage as a key benefit. You can put $20,000 down for a $100,000 house. If the house climbs to $120K, you effectively doubled your money. That is true, but remember this. Leverage works on the way up as well as the way down. If your house declines by 10%, you don't just lose 10% of your equity. In fact, you can be wiped out.
That's not entirely true, because you can short sell the home. You could foreclose the home, and realistically, if you do either of those, it is not a good situation. It dramatically affects your bank. You can do the whole bankruptcy thing, your credit, whatever. But let's say you had a $500,000 house, and it dropped to $400,000, and you couldn't afford to pay it, and you lost it, and whatever. You are not on the hook for $500,000 to the bank. It gets erased. It's whereas if you had a $500,000 in the stock market, it goes from $500,000 to 250, like. Yeah, you're out $250,000 until it comes back. So, I mean, it's a give take. Like, I do understand where he's coming from. And don't get me wrong, debt is risk. There is risk associated with that. Leverage has risk associated, which is why you should never buy outside your means. But it's a tool. It's like driving a car. A car has risk associated with it. You can get in a wreck. You can get hit by a drunk driver or whatever. But it's a tool. Like, if you use it appropriately, the car will get you A to B faster than walking. If you use leverage appropriately, it'll get you A to B in your financial journey faster than renting.
House values don't only go up, and leverage can work for you or it can work against you. Myth number 4, I can deduct my mortgage interest from my taxes and save a bunch of money. Look, tax savings are great, but most people forget that they are saving money that they ordinarily never would have spent.
Except the rent payment would be higher in the exact example that he gave that we dug in. So again, back to this mortgage calculator. If he's saying this $104.17 is tax deductible every year, right, which is, call it $1,250, then $1,260, whatever, then that $1,200 that is tax deductible, which really is, we're arguing over that dime right now, this is peanuts in the grand scheme of things, is money that he would be paying on rent anyway, plus some. So it's money that would be getting paid in this exact example to rent a place that is not tax deductible, vice not renting, you own the place, and therefore it is tax deductible. So yeah, I don't know, we're still winning.
In many, many cities, the amount you pay for owning a house is much more than you would pay to rent an equivalent house, especially once you factor in all the phantom costs. And remember, those tax deductions that everybody talks about, they were reduced even further in 2018, so I would not count on this. When you ask people, for example, what tax deductions, they often go, oh, your tax deductions. I go, what tax deductions?
Oh no. Hey guys, I'm sorry, you can only deduct the first $750,000 in interest payments. This doesn't affect you. None of the people watching this YouTube video are going to pay $750,000 in property taxes on their primary residence. If you do, you're doing way better than me. Why are you watching my... I don't know about you, but I'd rather have $750,000 in tax write-offs than $750,000 go to a landlord because I'm renting.
And so I would not count on this. When you ask people, for example, what tax deductions, they often go, oh, tax deductions. I go, what tax deductions?
I could explain that in detail, but that is beyond the scope of this video, so watch my other stuff. I've got videos on it.
Part 3, always run the numbers. Have you heard this phrase? If you rent, you're just throwing your money away, or you're paying your landlord's mortgage. I got a question for you. Would you say the same thing about eating out? Would you say you're paying the restaurant owner's mortgage when you eat that sushi? No. So why is it that just rolls off our tongue when it comes to housing?
It's because people want to fearmonger and hate on landlords. But also, interesting example, because I believe he's in the financial space of people who will tell you to save money by going to the grocery store and cooking your own food instead of eating at a restaurant, which I believe would fall closer to the homeownership argument than the rental argument. But, I digress.
But we don't resent when we go and buy paper towels and pay someone else's mortgage because we're paying for value. Now, this is really important. I want you to pay close attention, especially when you are talking about high cost of living cities like New York, LA, San Francisco, 3 cities I have lived in.
It makes so much sense. He chooses to live in places that he can't afford, so he doesn't buy. Also, look, in the short game, renting often wins. If you're going to live somewhere very short term, renting usually wins. That's why I rented in California when I was only going to be there for 18 months. So yeah, like I said, there's an argument for renting. But he's omitting the fact that he's choosing to live in 3 of the most expensive cities in the world, let alone the country. And he's living there for, I would say, arguably short periods of time if he's lived in all 3 of them and he's not incredibly old. So yeah, that makes sense.
When I was living in New York City, I was renting a nice place and I saw that there was a unit right next door and I tracked it. It would have cost me 2.2 times more to own than what I was paying in rent. Let's just say I was paying $3,000 a month in rent. It would have cost me $6,600 a month to own an equivalent property.
Interesting. Let's see.
You know what I did instead? I said, first of all, I like renting. If I have a problem, I just text my landlord. And second, I took the $3,600 extra dollars I would have spent owning and I just invested it in the market. And guess what? I made more money doing that, renting and investing the difference, than I would have owning.
Oh, let's play the devil's advocate here. What would we need to do to get to a $6,000 payment? Probably $750. And we'll just say percentage 20. Let's just try that and see where we come out. Nope. All right, let's do. All right, so for argument's sake, we're going to do $1.2 million would have been that purchase price, which is $66.78 a month, right? So if you look right over where we at, hang on. Okay, so we'll just look right here. So yeah, in year 1, $9,000 that goes to principal, but in year 2, $20,000. So like, here's the thing. By the time you get, this is the same exact example he just gave. By the time you get to that 10-year mark, right? You can see that there is $200,000 paid off on the principal of this mortgage. And then that just accelerates over time. So the longer you stay, the more this makes sense. So let's assume that in this 10 years, his same exact example, this property went from that 1.2 purchase price to 2.4. So if it went to 2.4 and he now owes 800,000, right? Math in public says that that's $1.6 million. Now we'll take out the 200 and whatever the down payment would be, which would be like 240. So we'll take out the 240. So let me just, I'll just math this up for you real quick. We're sitting right here. So let's say you were at 1 point this times 0.2. So yeah, so 240. So let's say that 1 point. Oh shit. You can see I'm doing this all raw. So say that doubles. $2.4 million, right? That's what the property is worth. Okay, minus the 240. So we'll take out your down payment minus 803,775.88. This is your equity right now. Now let's just do this math real quick, because again, his payment will accelerate and that property will continue to accelerate and compound in growth. So $1.356 million in equity right there. Let's see. We'll let the ChatGPT do its wizardry real quick, and we're going to see how far off we are. And again, remember, this is not factoring the fact that, well, hang on. Oh, all right. So it would grow to approximately $737,441, which really is only $500,000 shy of where you could be with his exact numbers for homeownership. But yet, I'm sorry, didn't he say it'd be 2.2 times more expensive to own? Odd. The math doesn't math. All right. Anyway, sorry.
No renovations, no problems with the faucet, just living my life, texting my landlord, sitting back on the weekends and chilling and investing $3,600 per month in the market. I'm not saying your financial situation will be exactly the same, but if you buy a house without opening up a spreadsheet and entering some numbers, you are making a huge mistake.
We agree on this. Like, you should not buy outside your means. And I'm not saying you should take a $6,600 mortgage payment immediately off of over a $3,000 rent payment. You need to factor in how long you're going to live there. But the argument that you shouldn't buy a house is just a dumb argument, and I'm just trying to debunk that. And yes, I know a house is not going to double every 10 years, but also we're using 10% as the S&P 500 math, and we're using 7%, which is doubling every 10 years, as the real estate math. So, keep that for what it's worth, because historically the S&P 500, if you take the inflation out, is a 7% return. And we're factoring the inflation into the real estate return. So the numbers would be skewed more if I did it differently.
Property tax, which will go up. Maintenance costs, which are unpredictable but still need to be factored in. Mortgage payments, opportunity cost. Use this to work out the real monthly payment and then compare that number to the cost of renting a similar property. If owning is considerably more, then financially speaking, it might make sense to rent and invest the difference. On the other hand, you might discover that it makes great financial sense to own it.
Okay, now we're not going to dig into the investor side of this because this is already a pretty lengthy video and I don't want to bore you guys. But look, I've got tons of content on the investor side. We can absolutely dig into that and talk about that and all the things. But I just want to point out that if you scroll down on this video, immediately he's got a 3-step house buying guide to see if buying a house is the right decision. You click on the link and ta-da, buy or rent, drop your... So this is a lead magnet. This is a fear video, because fear and anger are the strongest human emotions. It's a fear-based video to get you to sign up for this guide, to get on his email list so he can reach out to you so that eventually he can make money with his business. I am all for that. It's a great marketing play. It's a smart video, and the video did very well. I mean, you can see right here, almost 2 million views. That's like triple his subscriber count. That's pretty solid over the last year. Like, this is his most popular video. This is good. I'm not hating on Ramit. I like Ramit. I like his book. I like this marketing style. I like this guide. I like whatever. And it is what it is. Like, the deal is this. You stand to benefit from making smart financial decisions. I will not tell you that renting is always right. I will not tell you that buying is always right. In fact, just yesterday, I bet we can pull this up on my Instagram story. Can we pull it up on my Instagram story? Can I look at my story right here? Watch this. Boop. Yeah, right there. A guy I personally know made a post yesterday. If you're in the military, buy a house, go into debt if you have to. And my friend sent it to me and was like, this has to be to drive engagement because this is insane. And I was like, oh my gosh, only if it makes sense to buy as an investment. Don't speak in absolutes. Like, this is dumb. I hate the advice that service members and vets should always buy a house or should buy a house at every duty station. I hate the advice that you should only rent and that renting is how you do this and that it is a situation dependent thing. Run the math, understand what you're doing, make the right decision for yourself. Now, I will say that in this video where he's doing this math, we aren't even playing with the fact that if you use a VA loan, watch this. We'll just do the simple one. So the 125 purchase, we're going to say 0% down, same interest rate, same everything, but we're going to say 0% PMI because you're using a VA loan, right? So calculate, because you took out the PMI, let me make sure I didn't mess something up here. It's coming out of the exact same. Did I mess something up? No. Apparently not. Wait. That just doesn't even... Maybe there. Okay. So there we go. So now you're at 1134, right? I don't know what the difference was between the two, but whatever. So 1134 a month. So you could put 0 down and you'd pay an extra like $150 a month to own the place. But now you've still got $25,000 that you can put into the stock market, or you can save for repairs and maintenance. Like, I could do this math on the multi-million-dollar New York place, because most of you were saying, well, I don't have $240,000 to put down. Well, you could do the 0 down, and then it extrapolates the equity on that, and you still have it. Anyway, I've got a ton of content on this, ton of videos on this. I'm happy to help. I am not saying that buying a house is always the right decision. It's not. Not saying that renting a house is never the right decision. It can be. I've done it recently. I house hacked a rental property in San Diego. I paid $3,000 a month for 2 years. It was an 18-month. Ended up having to break it because I got out of the military sooner than that. And I paid $3,000 a month. I Airbnb'd 2 of the bedrooms, and I almost lived for free in San Diego County and Oceanside, outside Camp Pendleton. And it was amazing. It was a great experience. And where the market was at that time, I felt like that was the right decision. There were other variables at play. This is a decision that you need to make with thinking through all of the details. I cannot stand the idea that these multimillionaires who choose to live in really lavish, expensive cities and rent really nice places and do the thing tell you don't buy a house. Again, Grant Cardone's always like, don't buy a house, invest in real estate. Don't buy a house, invest in apartments. Don't buy a house, invest in apartments. Malibu fire, he lost a house. None of us knew he owned a house, but apparently he did. Dave Ramsey lives in a nice house. Now, I'm not saying that's bad, but like, he didn't emergency fund his way to that. He built a business. Ramit rents, that's fine, but he chooses to rent in expensive cities where, yeah, the cost of living on a single family is better. This math here is not even including my favorite strategy, which is house hacking. Renting out bedrooms or renting out other units if you buy a fourplex. I can make this math blow your mind to where it's just an absolute no-brainer to buy. But I'm not going to play the skew game. They are skewing the data this way to make their point seem valid. And I'm trying to give you kind of a centered math. I did not do any of the homework ahead of time. You saw me doing the math on the screen with ChatGPT and a mortgage calculator and a normal calculator. If I really want to skew this data this way to try to make a point, then we'll talk house hacking and you'll live for damn free while all of the other things are happening and your tenants are paying your mortgage down. That's my favorite strategy, but we're not going to do that. I'm not here to skew this data this way. I'm here to make the point that renting all the time is not the answer. And I'm tired of people saying it. Anyway, I digress. Comment down below if you got something out of this video. Tag Ramit if you want us to do a battle to the death on math. I don't know. I actually like Ramit, so I'd love to meet him. But this is just, I hope this helps. I love you guys. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Have a great day.